Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about a water temperature sensor for the RX-8. Now, very briefly, I'm going to go over why this is so important. Here, you have your coolant gauge, right? My car is not right now, but that's the coolant gauge. In the RX-8 community, this is commonly called a dummy gauge. And that is mainly because it is not accurate to the actual temperature of your car. It will go up, say it's up operating temperature, when it really isn't. It is 99% of the time not even, 100 degrees by the time that's all the way up. Now, operating temperature for this car in, about regular heat seems to be about 190 to 205. Colder weather, so like anything under 50, maybe the most you might get is 170, 180. But either way, aside from that, it's really important to get a water temperature gauge for your RX-8 if you're going to be getting one. Now, it's not an expensive upgrade. In total, this cost me about $100 between the gauge itself, the gauge pod, the wiring components I needed, and the adapter in the Inchmate, which I'll show you very shortly. Now, this install was relatively easy. Took me a bit of a time because it was my first time ever doing it, but I'm going to run you through how I did it real quick. Now, first things first is you're going to want to disconnect your battery. Basically, anytime you want to be working with wiring, your battery should just be disconnected. Now, to do that, you just take this cover off, you disconnect it, and then you want to take out the entire battery tray in order to access your water adapter. Now, once you get this off, obviously, I can't do that now because it's a bit of a process. After you undo the battery, get the battery tray out, you're going to want to jack the car up. If you can from the front. If you don't have a jack long enough, do it from both sides. Please use jack stands. Don't hurt yourself. Then you want to drain all your coolant out. It's just one plug underneath. Be careful. Make sure that you're doing it on a day when you haven't driven your car. If you do it on a day when you've driven your car, it might still be under pressure, and it can explode and go everywhere, and that's not very good. Once you get the coolant drained out, then you're going to go in and you're going to undo the two hose clamps that are on your adapter, and you're gonna take the adapter out. Your adapter's gonna look a little something like this. Now, mine actually broke the plastic here, but your aftermarket adapter is not gonna be this big. It's basically gonna be a smaller version of this. Now, this is where your two hose clamps are gonna be, and this is important to remember. That is gonna be a nut, or a bolt is gonna be in that. There's gonna be a hole. Now, once you get that out, and you get that out of here, just throw it to the side. Don't need it, all right? Once you get that out, you might have a little bit of coolant come out, so you might want to put another bucket underneath that if your other one doesn't catch it. Once you get that out, you're going to put in your new adapter, and then you're going to take the water temperature sensor that comes with your gauge. I got a Pro Sport Evo gauge, and it came with quite a bit. It came with everything I was going to need for it, except for a few components like wire and added fuses, which I'll talk about in a little bit. You're going to wrap some white Teflon tape. White Teflon tape is for water. I need liquid. You're going to wrap that around the thread of your sensor, not on the actual sensor, and you're just going to twist it in until it's snug. It's not going to go in all the way, so don't try and make it. You're going to mess it up. Just get it in until it's snug. You can't move it anymore with a wrench, by hand, might not be tight enough. So you're going to get that in, and you're going to ground your ground wire to the same bolt that was in this part right here. So this, obviously, this whole bracket is not a part of your new one, so you don't got to worry about it. You're just going to be putting the ground for the sensor onto where that bolt goes. Then you're obviously going to run your live wire, which you can see I've done with a bit of just simple red wire here. You're going to come around, and you're going to feed it through, if I can get it here, that little grommet. Please focus. It's not gonna. You're gonna feed it through that little grommet right there. Yeah, there you go. It's pretty easy to find. And then that's gonna take you inside the RX-8. Now it's gonna come out roughly right above your, right next to your clutch pedal. It's gonna come in right there. If you have a buddy, that'll make things 10 times easier. Now your fuse box in your RX-8 is actually very nicely located. It's right here. And it just comes out real nice. So the way that I've wired this instead of soldering is I've used an add fuse. Costing me about $10 from AutoZone. You can get them online as well. And I'll leave a link in the description to how to use add fuses. There's a very simple video, and it helped me out very easily. You put the two fuses in there, and then I'm not going to take it apart because it's a bit of a pain, but I have all of my wires back in here. Let me unzoom a bit here. I have all of my wires in this little panel here. I have the ground for my gauge in there, and the gauge pod came with this little thing right here. Everything I use in this video I'll have listed in the description to make it easy for you guys if you want to do it. So I have the ground in there, I have the connection for the wires for the lights, I have the connection for the power for the gauge. It's all in there. There's enough space in there. Really all you have to do is kind of just peel back this weather stripping here with you know, some kind of screwdriver or something, or even a fingernail if you can, and then you can get that piece out really easily. There's a bolt in there that you can use to ground. Now the way I've attached the gauge is just with some simple Velcro. It's similar to the stuff that you might use on an Easy Pass if you have those. It's just a little Velcro, and that's really what makes it super easy. So real quick, I'm going to show you guys what the Pro Sport Evo gauge looks like. It's a digital gauge. I really like the way it looks. There we go. So it has a nice little startup sequence, just like that. And it goes there. So right now my coolant's at 96 because I did drive my car today. Now when you start it up fresh, let's say you haven't driven it in a long time, a couple of hours to a day, the number is just automatically going to be 80 now. So just get this back in, you just put that 2 in, and you're gonna squeeze it in. It's not gonna fit perfectly because I have my wire, but it's good enough. So it's gonna say 80, at least with this gauge. I don't know what it's like for other gauges, but mine just says 80 off the bat. That's obviously not the temperature when you first start up. It just says 80 because I guess that's just the base number. But from what I've seen, the regular gauge that comes stock goes at the temperature in between 2 to 5 minutes, whereas depending on the temperature outside and how long it's supposed to have driven it, the Pro Sport Evo gauge takes between 5 to 15 minutes to get up to temperature, and that is your real temperature because that is the actual sensor in your coolant. Now obviously once all of this is said and done, you're going to want to put your coolant back in. You might need to add a little bit more, and just a note, because this freaked me out when it happened, it's gonna like bubble. Mine bubbled when I first drove the car. I heard this like just bubbling, and it's just the coolant getting back into the system, so don't get freaked out by that. I thought I was draining all my coolant underneath my car. So there it is. That is how you install a water temperature sensor in your RX-8. Very useful. It is a must-have. It is the first thing I did, and I knew it was going to be the first thing I did when I was researching these. You know, there's a lot of cool things that you can do with these cars, but unfortunately, you need the necessary before you can have the fun. So 100%, if you're going to own an RX-8 and you don't want it to blow up and you actually care about it, please, for the love of God, get a water temperature sensor gauge. You can even get gauge pods. Pro Sport also makes a group of oil temperature, oil pressure, and water temperature. But I just went with just the single water temperature because I don't really care about those, and I have an oil leak, as you can see. So it doesn't bother me that much. And if you're gonna ask where my oil leak is, it's coming from my oil metering pump, which I know isn't that good, but it's just the hardware. It's coming from the 4 bolts that go in on the left side. I need to get new hardware. It's just the washers, I'm assuming. So yeah, don't add me in the comments. Only reason I made this video was because the previous video I made on my RX-8, people were commenting saying that I should get a water temperature sensor, and so conveniently enough I did, and I just haven't made a video up until this point, but now I have. I hope you guys enjoy. Have a good rest of your day.